with a potential waiver for a small reduction in landscaping areas due to the alignment at those end islands. So the other point to note is because of that realignment, part of the property now takes in a small triangular portion, which we've highlighted in red there. So the petitioner's team has noted that the landscaping on there would be retained and that additional plantings as needed will be provided. So staff, again in italics here for condition, has recommended that the site plan approval exclude the landscaping and that landscaping must conform to the village code and regulations except for allowing end island reductions as shown in plans. So a landscaping plan could then be submitted at the permit process. For parking, as I noted, that it has a requested exception. The code requires 6.5 spaces per 1,000. The previous exception was reduced to 4.7, and the proposed is 4.4. So from numbers perspective, that is going from 638 to 601. The accessible stall count of 14 remains the same. The proposal has no changes. Otherwise, this is the only exception that's noted for the parking. Previous ordinance said overnight storage of 10 trucks and 6 cabs. That does not remain, that remains changed. It does not, it remains the same. It's not changing. So this is the only open item that staff has is to discuss the appropriateness of a reduced parking ratio. As far as lighting, no additional lighting information, no proposed lighting information has been provided. The site plan does show some lighting fixtures. It is not a complete or formal lighting plan. So that should be noted that the lighting that's seen there is not complete. So a photometric plan with lighting specifications would be required at the permit phase. Staff recommends to condition site plan approval to exclude the lighting and photometric, and they shall conform to village codes and regulations when they come in for permitting. No proposed changes to signage. So here on the screen we have, as well as in the report, we have kind of an itemization of what previous 2021 approvals included. That concludes the staff presentation. I have up on the screen the standards. I also have a representative from Pete's Fresh Market here to be able to answer questions.
Okay, thank you for that. Representative from Pete's, you're not required to speak, but you may be asked some questions. If you're asked some questions or you would like to comment, I'll swear you in at that time. What's your name?
Eugene.
Eugene, okay. All right, fantastic. All right, so we'll move on to commissioner questions and comments. Why don't we start right over here with Commissioner Gaskell?
I think my only question would be is why are we eliminating parking places? What is the purpose of that?
Can I speak?
Sure. Why don't you go ahead and step up and I'll swear you in and make it all official. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to provide is the truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I mean, we lowered it once and then we want to lower it again. That's my question, really.
The reason for the parking adjustments, when we introduced the Chick-fil-A, Starbucks, any of these high volume where they need stacking, they really are cumbersome. So to eliminate the traffic in the bog that would be coming off of Harlem into the drive, Chick-fil-A wanted to be on the south side. We pushed them to the north side, and then this allowed proper stacking. They flow around the building and come out. So by giving them a little bit more, pushing the boundary of Chick-fil-A a little bit more to the west, we introduced more landscape island there as well. So that's the drive that pushed that parking.
I see.
So they moved more land to where that outlot is, and then that obviously took away that parking. And I'll also say they have to come in for the final approval on the Chick-fil-A and the plat. there's gonna be cross parking, so if Pete's was really busy and Chick-fil-A wasn't, somebody can park on different sites, which is kind of what we like to see, instead of every site just has their own parking requirements. So if somebody parks in Chick-fil-A, they can still go walk to Pete's, and if somebody parks in Pete's, they can walk to Chick-fil-A. That'll be the goal when they come in for that final approval. We'll make sure that's in there.
Okay.
The parking ratio for us on this particular building for the square footage and the employees, it doesn't affect us at all. So we weren't concerned.
And that initial requirement was part of the first discussion, and I think I've said this in almost any request for a parking variance. Our numbers are incredibly high. They were put in place in 1978 and haven't really changed since. 6.5 was meant for Black Friday in 1978 or 1990. You know, it's not what's kind of needed today. That would be over parking the site. So we kind of rely on developers, business owners that are proposing these to come before us and say what actually works here. We obviously, things may change in the future, so we don't want to make it where it's so specific to a tenant. But anything above 4 has been worked out pretty well with retail at this point, so.
Okay.
And Dan, the discussion about the 6 limit moving down to 4 and the changes over time, that really has to deal with the rise of online shopping and those sorts of things that reduce the amount of people who are going to places to buy? Is that the difference over time, or?
That's part of it. I think online shopping, less retail, but also, I think it was always overparked, right? It was planned, we planned for the worst-case scenario way back when. I think we've realized that was to the detriment, because there's a lot of things that kind of downfall when you overpark and put extra asphalt in. And again, even the high end of stuff, there's no Black Friday rushes anymore. If you looked out there this year, it's a little bit, but in a grocery store is not even gonna have that same rush. But let's say it's
They might
the
have
day before
special.
Thanksgiving is the rush or something. Again, planning for the worst-case scenario, our whole town would be parking lots. And if you look at this area, I mean, this Kmart parking lot was, that's the example of meeting the code, was even in Kmart's highest peak, that parking lot was never full. And so that's the example of meeting the code. We're going to be taking a look at that. So it's come up quite often that we need to relook at those numbers.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Merrick, I appreciate you jumping in there. Anything further, as long as we're going down that way?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Truxell?
No, Jim answered or asked the question I was gonna ask. I wasn't clear on why the change was being made. And then Lori flipping back and forth between these, before and after the proposed, and, yeah, that makes it clear to me why we've got some changes coming. So I have no concerns. My only comment is, it looks good. And, the queuing should be sufficient too for Chick-fil-A, which is probably gonna be pretty busy.
And we'll dive, obviously, like we've said before, that'll have to come through for final approval.
Right.
But they have some details, so to present to you why they're doing this, it made sense to show you what they're doing.
No, it's clear to me.
So we'll dive into those details when they come in, but it was good for us also to see the stacking is there.
Right.
Because if you've seen a Chick-fil-A, that's their
Absolutely.
drive, so it was
Right.
good to see early on that that was a strong drive of why,
Perfect.
what they have going on there.
Commissioner Gatto?
So my only question is I know there's some site plan issues right now, and that's why is that why we're asking for a continuation to push it out to May 15 of '24? Because I know you guys had problems with the parking lot.
Not so much. The reason for the extension is, for instance, like our transformers. We ordered our transformers last year, October.
Okay,
I still don't have them.
okay.
Nightcore has been a real pain in our rear end.
Yeah,
and-
that's
excuse me, and trying to get that accomplished. There's a main utility or gas line that was running through the Pete's that has to be relocated before I can build the Pete's. So those issues on utility side, but then you take into account for Pete's Market, the specialty items that for building our stores, it's been very hard to procure the materials that we need to operate the store. To build the store, because the prices have just been astronomically high. In the beginning, it was procurement of obtaining the materials. Now the materials are pretty much there. Prices have come down, they've kind of plateaued. So that's why we're working forward now with the building, and that'll be going up.
Okay.
We've secured more of our interior. It's just no one will commit to dates. So we had to push out. We're hoping for the best, but we're comfortable with the date that we're presenting.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I don't want to talk for, obviously, everybody's hopeful it could get done before that date, but there was some built-in buffer in there because that's why we're here now. Things happen, and we're in a really odd time overall that I think they just want the built-in buffer there. If it can get done sooner, I think
Yep.
Pete's is on board with that. That's the goal.
Okay.
Just built-in buffer in there. And then some of it too is obviously Chick-fil-A kind of came in too, and things had to be adjusted, so they weren't gonna start until we had at least some semblance of where they were going with it, so they didn't have to redo anything.
All right. Commissioner Tibbetts?
I have no comments. I understand I shouldn't say that. I understand your struggles with the transformers, the supply chain issues, and the costs, so I have no further comments.
All right. Commissioner Hamilton?
No questions.
Great. All right. So I just had a point. The commission has heard me say this before, but when it comes to parking standards, I'm completely on board that our standards are excessive. I almost never have a problem with these sorts of reductions. And I'm with you, Dana, and taking a look at that. I had one question about the stacking and the design, trying to anticipate for the Chick-fil-A. The draft design that we have on here, I know that's not part of what we're considering here, but at least for what you have pictured, is that based on Chick-fil-A's analysis and their design and their standards?
This has been worked between us and Chick-fil-A for months. So it's a very good rendition of what you will see when they come to the plate.
Okay,
We're forcing that because we have conditions where they bottleneck traffic, and this is the only thing that we're going to allow.
okay,
For instance, I had a couple other properties with Starbucks, and they would not buy into what we wanted. And we said, well, find another location, because it just becomes cumbersome for everybody.
And obviously, it's good to have Pete's as the property owner, and they're kind of have that interest. Sometimes we have to be the person that will stop a bad plan because a developer's just looking at the money and wants to sell it. So Pete's has been, they did a lot of this without even our direction. Normally, it's staff that has to get involved to go, okay, you need to work on stacking, you need to work on access points, make sure this doesn't spill out. And so luckily, we haven't done a staff analysis on it yet, but it seems like a lot of the concerns we would have, they've already kind of addressed with them.
good.
So that'll
good.
make that whole process hopefully a lot quicker when they do come in.
That's good to hear. My main thing on it was just, to some degree, based on reality, right, in discussions with how Chick-fil-A would design it, as opposed to, just kind of tossing it on there. That gives me a little bit of comfort there. Again, it's only relevant because my concern would be if somehow we get to that phase and realize that it's still not enough space, right? Then we're coming back for another adjustment.
Yeah, no, we've gone through multiple rounds with that, and I even brought in a preliminary we discussed with the village just to get their feel for it. And plus Chick-fil-A in this particular scenario, they have 39 parking stalls within their footprint.
Yeah, that's good. I think all of this combines to me to not only get you through this, but it indicates that when we do get to that phase, that's hopefully just going to
Right.
sail right through.
I'll note too, we moved their actual egress, so as you come in, you have more of a 45, where before you had a hard right angle to turn. Now you have an easier lane to turn in off of the drive lane of Harlem. You come in, they have to come down much further through the property and then turn into the property. So again, if you have some more people that are trying to get into the Chick-fil-A site, you'll have more more queuing area.
That's good.
And
So-
this straightens that drive aisle out too, so part of what
Yeah.
we looked at was, okay, that's great, Chick-fil-A's here, they're not in front of us though. Does this make sense overall? If Chick-fil-A walked away tomorrow, does this still make sense for somebody to go in here? And I think regardless of the user that went into this site, this improves that outlet site to be a little more usable overall. And it actually, again, straightens out that drive aisle almost to be better, and improve it rather than before we were just kind of going with what was there and working within that, but this actually straightens that out a little bit. So I think overall it actually improves the site, whether Chick-fil-A came or not, but we're really excited for Chick-fil-A to.
No, I would agree with
Kind of
you.
to
As a
come there,
general
too.
rule, this is one of the better, especially with straightening that out, this is one of the better secondary access sections that we have here. There's a small triangular piece that's created by this change here. And I was kind of looking at that. You're down 37 spaces, and again, I'm not looking for extra spaces. I'm fine with the proposal. I struggle with it. I was looking to see if there was something functional, but I'm sure you guys did too. I don't think there's anything, it's the best, you'll landscape it and it'll look great, I think.
It's kind of, most people are going to assume that's probably part of the old Applebee's, which is going to become the Ascend Cannabis Dispensary. They're under construction now. Most people, if they didn't see property lines, are going to assume that's just an extension of that lot and it's theirs. So that's along the drive aisle, so that's not really available parking, and it wouldn't work for Pete's or Chick-fil-A. It would end up being parking for the dispensary, so it's not good usable space there, really.
Are we going to have any concerns over property maintenance with a property line going diagonally through a landscaped area or something?
No, for the most part, it'll probably be, it's already just mostly grass, but there might be a couple trees in there, but it's not gonna be like a heavily landscaped thing with a property line running through it.
Okay.
And I think the good news, again, is Pete's owns it, and they can't go anywhere. It's not a shopping center, so if there is an issue, it can be resolved, but I don't think there will be.
We can make it clear with the owner of that property on, that line per se, that cuts through that angle. But we handle all our own landscaping. We have our own crews, so once they get familiar with the property, it'll be maintained very well.
It's a little weird situation now where they're both, we have Ascend and Pete's moving forward. Eventually, once somebody's opening, we're making sure they're connected too, because their sites are obviously interconnected. So even this construction, if Ascend ends up opening and this isn't complete yet, there's gonna need to be coordination. So
Yep.
Eugene and then the Pete, or the Ascend manager will have contact. I think they already have each other's contact information. So.
Okay. The only other thing I wanted to make sure we covered is there were a few items in here. I think it was landscaping, photometrics, and there was a third one, I forget, that the recommendation was to exclude them from the recommendation. And I just want to confirm that as part of that is, would those items then, they're conditioned, right, on an approved plan, but that just essentially becomes a staff review and approval, right?
Yeah.
That's how we're.
Yeah, so
approaching
we're
it.
just saying we'll review it with the permits. It's got to meet the code requirements and what was previously approved, except for the slight reduction we're seeing in the end islands is kind of the one thing that's changing. But yes, what we approve with the permits will become those approved plans. Of course, if you guys were uncomfortable and felt that was something you really needed to see, you could ask for it and continue it, but we don't think it's they're still planning to meet the code requirements. We just don't have the physical plan in front of us. So.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. I for one, I'm comfortable with that as we move to conclude this here. It's an important point. If any of the other commissioners have concerns about that exclusion, anyone want to comment on that? No? All right, then there we go. All right, so that concludes the commissioners' comments and questions in the staff report. I see there are some people here from the public. Not sure if any of you are here to speak for this. You are? Okay. So Eugene, if you could step aside, some of the comments from the public or questions you may want to address or answer, so you're still sworn in. If there's more than one person, I'll just swear you in one at a time. You don't have to get in a line. So whoever would like to step up first. Sir?
Sir, if you could please write your name on the sign-in sheet as well.
Certainly. I don't have a pen, but my name is Phil Lorenzi.
Did you say Phil?
Phil.
Okay.
I live at 16127 Lake Villa Avenue in Park Place Villas subdivision.
Okay, I need to swear you in real quick.
Okay?
All right, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and only the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right. I'm a resident of Park Place Villas, and I'm also the HOA, a member of the Homeowners Association. Several of my constituents who live to the south end of the development, closer to Pete's Fresh Market warehouse, have expressed concerns about noise from loading dock operations. I'd like to read into the record that this is a village ordinance. It's a violation to operate a loading dock by actively performing loading and/or unloading functions in relation thereto between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. in any place within the village in which the majority of the buildings within a radius of 300 feet are used exclusively for residential purposes. That would include Park Place Villas, of which I am a part of. Okay. I don't expect Eugene to have his company move the buildings farther away. What I would like to see is some form of sound mitigation, sound barrier to reduce the noise from loading dock operations, okay, if they're going to occur between 10 p.m. and 6 p.m. I know it's a village ordinance that that's not allowed, but using a golf rangefinder from my house to Sam's, a current loading dock warehouse, I'm 160 feet, well within the 300-foot radius of their operations. They operate their loading dock extensively between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., okay? And occasional calls by residents to the non-emergency police line get some form of a response that will send somebody, and either they send an officer or not to have a truck stop running its refrigeration unit. There's no stopping Sam's Club from running their forklifts in and out of trucks, which make a very loud banging noise when they are doing this loading and unloading of the trucks that are loaded up against this dock. And what we have currently is a 6-foot cedar fence and a line of pine trees that are absolutely useless for mitigating noise. So I think it's probably better to get ahead of this and try to address sound mitigation before the buildings are built and the loading and unloading occurs. I understand business. I think this is a great development for the village. I hate to see dead property. I think we all do. And but at the same time, I need my sleep as well as my neighbors. Okay, so I will ask you, Eugene, could you take note of my concerns and see what can be done to mitigate the sound from loading dock operation to our residences.
Sure,
we had
this discussion before in our previous hearings.
Okay.
Eugene, could we get you to step up to the mic there? And Phil, if you have some more questions or points, you can come back. I'd just like to give him the opportunity to address your question.
So in our previous hearings, and this has been discussed, but the village also understands, Pete's Market operates their deliveries for Pete's Market
Yeah.
from 7 a.m. We shut down by 5 p.m. at the latest. There's no overnight deliveries.
Thank you.
So, and also our dock is enclosed. So when a truck pulls in into the building itself, it's in its own enclosed area, let's call it that.
Understood. And the noise doesn't occur inside
Mhm.
the enclosure. It's that dock plate that extends from the dock into a truck, such that when a forklift drives over it, you get a kaboom.
Sure.
And then when it exits, you
Sure,
get
sure.
a kaboom.
Completely understand. Most of, like, we're 7 to 4:30 or 7 to 5, but a lot of times our deliveries, except for maybe Thanksgiving and Christmas, we're
Okay.
done by about 3 o'clock.
That's wonderful.
Mhm.
Okay, and I appreciate you explaining that to
Mhm.
us. You know, I will relay that to my
Okay.
fellow residents.
Yep.
And we can pass along, because this was a pretty extensive discussion the first time around, so this went through the same public hearing process, but was a lot more substantial than what we did here today, that went over the entire site. So we've actually gone through this in the loading times. There was residents here that lived behind it. I think at least 6 of them were here for that public hearing. So it was a pretty substantial discussion about the fence. There's a landscaping buffer back there. There's a parking lot that also kind of helps buffer it as well, that kind of moves those docks. The HVAC units on the rooftops came up, and we had noise information, and we looked into that. So there was a pretty extensive discussion, and I believe, I don't know when the date was, but basically when this was first approved. So I can certainly, if we take your information, we can also even forward you the original staff reports and the approved site plans for this, so you can see the totality of kind of everything we looked at there to make sure any noise was mitigated from the site.
Could you, either you, Dan or Eugene, on that same front, a summary addressing, I know that you have dock operating hours, which is good. But if there is overnight parking, and can you address, the parking and the noise from trucks running, that sort of thing?
Sure. So the operation of the Pete's Market, we moved the building purposely forward up towards the east to give that more of a buffer for the residents as well. So we could have very well pushed the building more towards the back and then put the employees, so that back area is really for our employees to park and just overflow.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Mhm.
It's really not the distance as much as it is the hours.
Mhm.
You know, and we have an existing ordinance that is difficult to get compliance
Sure.
with. You know, I don't know why that is, but, it's the hours. Based on what you have stated
Mhm.
about your normal loading, I appreciate that.
Good, I
Okay?
appreciate it. Thank you.
That means I'll be able to sleep.
I don't know about Sam's,
At
but.
least-
And
at least
Sam's
wake
Club's,
me up.
yeah, Sam's Club actually has a long history that I won't get into, but it's part of the reason why the ordinance exists today. So part of the issue originally with Sam's is the village actually couldn't enforce the ordinance that we put in retroactively because they were a problem. But actually, I think some residents sued, and it actually forced some changes there. So we do have an ordinance. They actually pushed back because we couldn't enforce it for a little bit, because it was actually put in place because it became a big issue, and we wanted to protect residents. So there's a long history there with the Sam's Club side of it, of why that is, but we can certainly talk outside of this meeting a little bit more about that, what we can do about it, because there's, like I said, a long history of how we tried
Can I talk to
to.
you after the meeting?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Phil. You have anything else, sir? That's,
That was it.
okay. I saw someone else had their hand raised. You wanna step up? All right, I'm gonna swear you in. What's your first name?
My name is Lenise.
Lenise? Okay, can you raise your right hand?
Yes.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and only the truth?
So help me God.
All
I
right,
missed
thank
that
you.
part. I am also one of the residents on the Park Place Villas, and my questions are much simpler because I don't really understand all this jargon and all the stuff you all understand. Because my son, he looks out his windows and we see every day all the big humongous pile of dirt and everything and all the concrete stuff that's happening. And what I don't understand, I just need to have you draw me a picture in my mind of, is the old Kmart, is that what you're calling the warehouse? That's gonna be the warehouse? But then there's also gonna be built a Pete's Market and a Chick-fil-A.
Yes.
Okay, and my question is, it seems like they're so close to our fence that how all these big things are gonna be right up against our fence, or how close are they really gonna be?
Well, I think Eugene just spoke to that, and do you want to comment on it? He was just talking about the placement of the Pete's Market, right? The warehouse already exists, and you can see that. But
So,
You don't have a site plan with,
Simple.
yeah.
You can make it
No,
simple.
no, I will. I need something to reference.
Because I don't really
Slides,
get
one
all
If we
that.
could stay right here
detail.
for a moment. So,
stay
Or
with
not.
that. Yeah, stay with this one.
Yeah.
do you see where it says parcel 4, parcel 5?
No.
Down at the bottom of the sheet.
Down here in the lower portion,
anybody have a laser pointer?
white blocks.
I see the white box, yes.
Parcel 4, parcel 5. That right there is Harlem.
Okay,
So Chick-fil-A will be up towards Harlem.
okay,
And then you see the gray shaded area, that's the parking lot. And then behind that is the white building there, you see? You see that?
is that up under
Yeah,
the
I-
words
I have this.
previously approved?
Let me show you.
I just need to know that it's not gonna be
It's not, let me show you.
coming right at us
There
through
you go.
this little fence and this trees.
So here. So this is Harlem,
Uh-huh,
this is the Kmart, the old Kmart.
yeah, I see
Which is our
that.
warehouse. Chick-fil-A's here,
Okay,
parking lot. This is our building, the new Pete's Market. And this is the buffer zone, because we moved the building forward to the east. Was it
So-
150 feet? I think.
I'd have to go back.
About 150 feet of distance from that curb line, the existing curb line, to our building. So we moved it forward.
I know, but where are our houses?
Back here,
And these are our, is this our fence here?
this is your fence, correct.
And it looks like they're right there.
This is parking.
I know, so we're gonna have all these parking people, I feel insecure, like anything can be, somebody can come do us harm or something if their parking is right next to our
Well,
fence there.
This is our employees, and this is for our personal parking, and then our trucks that come into our facility here. So this is really not meant for the patrons that are gonna visit the store.
Oh, okay.
This is for the people that are our employees. We're putting back into this zone over here. This curb line really has not changed from the way Kmart had it. We're leaving that curb line, but we're putting our parking here so that, put it this way, if our building was positioned this way, this would all be parking. So we're just putting our employees here and keeping all the patrons up into the front. And we move the building forward to give them that distance that's there. You are getting a new fence as well. We're providing a new fence that'll happen throughout the property.
Okay, all right, because it's intimidating to hear it, to see this mountain of dirt growing and all those trees are gone, and it was nice having them. But I appreciate what you said, thank you.
And construction is not ideal sometimes, but it is temporary, so hopefully those mounds will go down at some point, but over the next year, it is gonna be a construction site, so. But we have construction hours as well, and it'll just be that building that Eugene showed you that's new. In the Chick-fil-A, you're not even gonna see it, because the Pete's building is gonna completely block that, from.
One thing, is the Prime Time, the Amazon Prime, is that ever gonna open on the other side of Maryland?
Well, the question of the
Or will
year,
it be,
right? I think I'm quoted in the Patch article now, so they don't respond to us very well. Everybody's hope is it will open. It's basically finished on the inside, and the hope is they're gonna open sometime this year. Their signs say 2023. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not summer or fall. But at some point they will. Amazon's just not good at sharing what their plans are. But
Yeah.
it's not just happening here, it's happened throughout the country that they're just not opening them. Some of it is the same struggles all these stores are having, employees, materials. Some of it is, I think, maybe they overexpanded too quickly and they're waiting for some stuff to catch up. I wish I had a better answer,
Thank
but.
you very
yep.
much.
Okay, did we have anyone else from the public that wanted to speak? Okay. Appreciate all the questions and Eugene for answering them there. I had a question on that actually might help Lenice there. Are there any 3D renderings that exist? I don't know, typically you wouldn't do it from the backside over there, but perhaps if there were some that exist, they could be shared somewhere so that the public, because I know a lot of the public is not, they don't see in 2 dimensions, right?
And it's
They only-
actually on our website under the current projects page, but I can certainly share it with them too. It was more with the original approvals. We were just kind of focusing on what they were changing here
Yep.
today. But I can certainly make sure they have a copy of what the original approvals were, which I think will give them a better understanding of the overall site and project. So-
All right, fantastic. Did that spark any more comments or questions from the commission? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion.
Moved Commissioner Gaskell, second. Second Commissioner Truxell down there. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, public hearing is closed. We can, Lori, I don't think you need to run through verbatim the standards there, but if you want to hit the highlights to emphasize what we should be considering as part of this?
Okay, thank you. So there are 2 sets of standards. This is all per the staff report. The first is regarding architectural. So, I'm sorry, for site plan specifically. So these items here, just refer to that the site has appropriate layout for the development. So we don't have standards that we provide for, response to standards that we provide for that. But, in general, it would be for, like I said, the layout of the site, the design of it. So for the standards on special use, that's for the substantial deviation to the PUD. These are the typical standards we have, so I'll just try to run quickly through. The first one, we're noting that the proposal is not detrimental to public health, safety, welfare, morals, et cetera. The proposed exception of parking ratio is safe for the public. Secondly, it will not be injurious to the use of others in the immediate vicinity. We note the outlot property for the Chick-fil-A. And then thirdly, it will not impede the normal and orderly development. The neighboring properties are either already developed or currently under development. Also, the site is adequately designed for utilities and drainage, et cetera, and allows for safe circulation for delivery trucks. And that was an additional exhibit that was provided for truck turning radius. And then as far as the standard F here, that's just stating that all other village code requirements will be met. And then lastly, for economic development, this will allow Pete's to open as anticipated due to various conditions with the economy, and will generate sales revenue tax and reactivate a vacant, highly visible property.
Okay.
Motion's up on screen.
So, any questions or comments from the commission regarding the standards? Do those make sense? Anyone have any concerns about how the standards may or may not be met? Okay, hearing none. As I'm viewing it, I don't believe that the result of the public hearing would result in any changes to the proposed motion. Is that fair to say?
I'm sorry, you don't believe the result of the public hearing
The,
would?
the motions that we have as proposed here, nothing that came up in a public hearing would alter that. I don't view that. Right?
Oh, I'm sorry. So the motions we have here as are per the staff report and, based on what we've heard here tonight, staff still finds it appropriate. The first one is for the substantial deviation, so, these are as the petitioner's request.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just, I'm stating that as I'm seeing it, I don't see any reason that we would need to alter
To
any of the
adjust it
motions.
or amend it, okay.
Just kind of making that clear, the commissions, making sure everyone agrees on that point. Sometimes we do change them. So with that, I will entertain a motion on this matter. Motion number one.
I make a motion to recommend that the village board grant a special use permit for the substantial deviation from the Park Place PUD to the petitioner, Petro Demonis of Pete's Fresh Market on behalf of 163rd and Harlem LLC to permit site plan changes including parking reduction and drives aisle reconfiguration, an extension of the grocery store occupancy deadline per ordinance 20-0-061, section 4.1, from September 1st, 2022 to May 15th, 2024, at 163rd and Harlem Avenue in the B3 PD, General Business and Commercial Park Place PUD zoning district in accordance with the plans submitted and adopt findings of fact proposed by the village staff in the January 5th, 2023 staff report.
We have a motion from Commissioner Gaskell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gatto. Could we get a roll call vote on motion number one, please?
Commissioner Gaskell?
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Tibbetts?
Yes.
Commissioner Truxell?
Yes.
Acting Chair Shaw?
Yes. All right. Motion number one is approved. Motion number two, similar way. Do I have a motion proposed? Commissioner Truxell.
I'll take it. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to grant the petitioner Petros Dramonas of Pete's Fresh Market on the behalf of 163rd and Harlem LLC final site plan approval for various site changes, including a realignment of the east drive aisle at 16300 Harlem Avenue in the B3 PD General Business and Commercial Park Place PUD zoning district in accordance with the plans submitted and subject to the following conditions. And we reference conditions as listed in motions to consider section of the January 5th, 2023 staff report.
Okay, motion Commissioner Truxell. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gaskell. Could we get a roll call vote on motion number two, please?
Commissioner Gaskell?
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick?
Yes.
Commissioner Tibbetts?
Yes.
Commissioner Truxell?
Yes.
Acting Chair Shaw?
Yes. Okay, motion is approved. All right, and we only have two. For some reason, I thought we had three motions. That's all right. Somebody can throw another one out there if they'd like. I think that concludes it for Pete's. Thank you, Eugene. I appreciate you being here and answering the questions. It looks like it's going well, and looking forward.
I
forward to it.
wanted to also mention it will go to the village board at January 17th.
Yes, it will. It was, both motions were unanimous, and so we'll go to the village board on January 17th. All right, moving right along here. The next item we have is also a public hearing. This public hearing is for massage establishments. This is a zoning ordinance text amendment. Do I have well, I would like to confirm that I have certificate of publication for this public hearing, so we can proceed. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Move Commissioner Gaskell, move Commissioner Gatto, second Commissioner Gaskell. All in favor of opening the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is open. We can move right along.
Okay, so the background for this is massage establishment uses are not specifically defined at this point in our zoning ordinance. We have a more general category referred to as personal services establishments. And the way the code is right now, they are permitted in the B2 community shopping and B3 general business and commercial zoning districts. Also, they are permitted by right in the legacy district. So the reason that specifically it's coming to you at this point is due to recent numerous violations of the municipal code for illegitimate business activity by multiple businesses. So we would propose changes to the zoning code's use chart and definitions. Here is the existing use chart. So as per our workshop, everything basically remains as discussed in the workshop. We've noted and read any additions or changes that we've had since the workshop. So one thing that was not brought up was the applicability in the legacy district. So right now, it's permitted by right. So you can see here, there's 2 rows. The first is under the personal services establishments category. That's what massage establishments are currently listed as. We've also, just for a comparison point of view, have shown another category, barbershops, beauty parlors, and day spas, to give you an idea of how permissive and in regards to zoning districts in the village. So, as I said before, personal services establishments are permitted in B2, B3, and legacy. A barbershop, beauty parlor, day spas are permitted in those districts, as well as B1 and B4. So village staff has provided proposed definitions that would go along with these zoning classifications. So the first would be for what defines a massage, and then secondly would be what defines a massage establishment. So you have to have the use and the service defined accordingly. These are all the same as what we discussed in the previous workshop. There was one notable comment on what type of floor area is counted. So staff has revised it and read just to note that it is per usable floor area. So that is a formal definition that the village zoning ordinance has that more or less refers to the areas excluding service or mechanical type of rooms or spaces. So again, as before, the same exceptions are listed. And in red, just noting, again, it's the threshold. We're keeping the same number as before, 25%, but it's of usable floor area. So for the proposed use chart, staff proposes to make a massage establishment a special use. So requiring review and approval via public hearing process to Plan Commission and to Village Board. So this is proposed not just for the B2, B3, and legacy, but also for the B1 and B4. So B1 and B4, I've noted some of the definitions that we describe the character of those districts per our zoning code. Importantly, we also want to consider other effects to adding, to allowing the potential addition via special use process for more uses to areas that may have vacancy concerns. So in general in the village, the B1 neighborhood shopping zoning district has been one of the hardest hit areas with vacancy. So it's also a very restrictive use category. So providing that as a special use may allow for more business activity there. And the same with B4, that does have somewhat higher vacancy as well. And that is office and service businesses. So, you know, that district also can serve as a transition between residential and commercial. So overall, by making these special use, it requires an applicant, a petitioner, to go through the public hearing process, to be sworn in and identify what their intent of the use is. So detailed business operations are, as well as special use permits, discussed and basically sworn to note that the petitioner will follow those. A compliant massage use, we've also noted that doesn't create any external negative effects, could be a good fit in these districts. And this is looking from the perspective of we're making the use not permitted, but it's special, but we're opening up the areas in which it could go. So B1 through B4 as well as legacy. So from the workshop, the feedback that staff received was that the commission was generally supportive of the proposed amendment, feeling it made sense and appropriate response to the recent rise in violations due to the illegitimate activity. And it helps the process as a fine line to provide, it's not necessarily a hard barrier, but it makes potential illegitimate activity, it's a deterrent for illegitimate activity to come through when you have to go through a public hearing process, but is still passable for potential legitimate use. So overall, the commission gave feedback that they were supportive of the expansion of B1 and B4 as well. So the last point is, of course, you know, we discussed the B1, B2, B3, B4, but we'd also want to, of course, discuss legacy to have that as special use as well. That concludes the staff presentation. I have a motion up on screen.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. In going to the commissioners, I believe Commissioner Gatto, you were not available to come to the last one, so I'm going to let you go first and see if you had any comments or questions. Before you do, though, I just wanted to highlight a change here, and that's from the workshop. That was the inclusion of the legacy district on there. So as any commissioners have questions or comments, let's make sure that we address that to whatever extent you have a comment.
I don't have any comments. I agree with everything.
All right. Commissioner Tibbetts.
No concerns.
Commissioner Hamilton.
No comments.
Commissioner Truxell.
No, I think it's a good idea to bring in special use for this, so I'm in agreement.
Great. Commissioner Merrick, I know you had some good comments last time around.
I did, well, this is an area of study, actually. But, so the Legacy District is at the old downtown area? Okay.
Largely, it's downtown, a little north, and then all the way down to 183rd.
167th to 183rd.
Gotcha.
Essentially along Park Avenue.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking again, like prohibition regimes build black markets, right? And regulation is better, so I'm in favor.
Great. Commissioner Gaskell?
No, I have no comments.
I actually am with the rest of the commission. We talked about it at the workshop, so no reason to beat this up. I actually appreciate the couple small tweaks that you made on there to clarify the usable floor area, that clarified it, as well as the inclusion of the legacy district. I don't think any special consideration is really necessary. I think the process that you're outlining covers legacy district just as well. The one point that I would make, and actually Commissioner Merrick might have some thoughts on this, is that I thought this serves as a really good template looking at other use types that might be problematic in the future, as whether there's a, you kind of a list in your back pocket already, or something comes up. I think this is,
Gambling, cannabis,
Yeah.
whatever it might be, right?
Tobacco, all the smoke shops that are in the same spot.
yep.
Yeah, we don't want to prohibit things if we
Right.
don't have to. I'm also a less government sometimes is better, but there are some things that if you could see problems with them, special use is a really good, if you look at those standards, they really set it up that if there was a problem with the location, you can look at each one and say, is this a problem? You can also look at the village overall and say, look, we have too many of this thing and we're really creating a problem overall. So you can look at different scales. All that kind of leads to that. It's why a special use, or sometimes called a conditional use, is really useful. Is it gives you that middle ground of saying that we're okay with this sometimes. And we
Yeah.
really need to take a special look at whatever the situation is. So,
Yeah,
and sometimes it's these things that are kind of more moral type issues or legality issues come up. Some other ones are parking and traffic, right? So it just depends on what that issue could be. But we want to be permissive, so that way we don't have vacancies, we have productive commercial districts.
Yeah, what I like about this one in particular is that it really doesn't pull in an entire class of uses. It really hones in on a type of scenario that we want to target, and it carves out from within that. So whenever we can identify factors that help us do that, I'm for this, so. All right. That being said, any comments from the public? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Move Commissioner Gatto, second Commissioner Gaskell. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Public hearing is now closed. And I don't think we have anything other than the motion to consider here, so I will entertain the motion on this matter. Come on, you guys want to get out of here?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the village board amend sections II.B definitions, section V.B.1, Schedule 1, schedule of permitted uses by use type, and section 12, section 3.A, table 3.A.2, legacy code special uses of the zoning ordinance as described in the January 5th, 2023 staff report, and drafted ordinance by defining and regulating massage use establishments to allow massage use establishments as a special use in the B1 neighborhood shopping, B2 community shopping, and B3 general business and commercial, B4 office and service businesses, and the legacy zoning districts.
Motion, Commissioner Gaskell, do I have a second? I'm sorry, Commissioner Gatto. Do I have a
Oh, I'll
second?
second it.
Commissioner Gaskell. All right, next time you guys are over there. All right, roll call on this, please.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Tibbetts.
Yes.
Commissioner Truxell.
Yes.
Acting Chair Shaw.
Yes. Motion is carried unanimously. Excellent. So that will go to the village board on the 17th also?
Yeah, it'll be a first reading on the 17th, so text amendments typically go through 2 readings.
Yep. All right, good deal. Next item is to receive comments from the public. Seeing none, we'll move on to good of the order.
Okay, so I would first like to introduce Michael Whalen. He is our new associate planner. You've been here for a couple weeks now?
Almost a month.
Almost a month, yeah.
Time flies.
So I'm thrilled to
Welcome.
have him, so we can, finally have a little bit more staff, and he has a great background, so can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Michael Whalen. grew up in Chicago, recently worked for large county government in Florida for 4 years in the Tampa Bay suburbs. Excited to be back. Don't mind the winter. Looking forward to, working with you all and having a long, good run at Tinley Park.
Excellent. Welcome.
Welcome.
I am also excited he is here, so that'll give us some opportunity. Obviously, there's a lot of the things we talk about, and I think we all want them to happen, but as staff turnover has happened, sometimes it's tough. So things like the fences, the active transportation plan, this gives, it may not all be Michael, it might be Lori, but at least now they can share projects, and with me doing dual roles too, hopefully this will all allow us to really move some of that stuff forward. And glad to have Michael on board, so.
Fantastic. Does that bring the building department, or the community development department up to staff, or do you still have allocations out there?
So we're down one of my dual role right now,
Right.
which is planning manager and interim director. So as that gets finalized, there'll be still a director and a planning manager that will be there. So we're down one essentially in the
Great.
department.
All right, that'll be even better in the future, very soon. Okay, any other items on good of the order?
So, yeah.
Not that that wasn't enough.
Well, we can just kind of go over some of the recent projects that are underway or various stages. First, the recent fence variation that did go to village board for first reading. Dan can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody watched it or anything. The village board obviously takes into account your recommendation very seriously, so they had a actually long talk about it. They did direct staff to alter the ordinance to allow essentially the fence where it's at, taking into account the other considerations that are there that maybe you guys don't get to look at from the standard standpoint, but they were appreciative of everything you do. So they're not overriding you, they're not saying you were wrong, and they wanted to make that clear. So, because sometimes they're just taking into account other things, which is what we tell the residents here. So it's, just wanted to let you guys know that on the 17th, it'll go forward to basically approve it as it sits there today.
Any questions or comments on that?
They did that the last time we had one too, right?
Not the same, they
It was when it went
altered
right to
it
the
by
patio or
like 5.
something?
Yeah, they allowed it essentially, still didn't allow what they were really asking for, but allowed 5 feet. So found a middle ground there that they were looking at some other considerations. You guys are really, did your job the right way, right? Looking at
It's all
what
good.
was in
I'm
front of
just
you.
saying.
Well, Dan brings up a really good point, because I will tell you, I've served on the zoning board in 3 different communities, and so it's something that it's difficult to get volunteers, get people to put in this time, so it is critically important when, staff puts in a bunch of time, the commissions put in a bunch of time, and then something different happens, right? So having this feedback and understanding it, it's really good to watch the village board meetings on these kind of things. And they can actually be even more boring than ours, so.
And they just wanted to make sure too, like you guys don't feel like, oh, they're saying we made the wrong decision here. That's what they're saying, is you guys did the right thing, and kind of with everything that happened here, it helped them really understand the situation a lot more, and they're able to take into other things. So
Yeah.
if they just didn't say anything, then you'd be like, should we just approve these next time? They were making sure to kind of make that clear.
Yeah,
So-
and that's what I was getting to, is that it's good to get that feedback. And for me, anyway, it's important for all of us to understand our role versus the board's role, being in an advisory position. And the one thing that I had asked for on that was that, when the board goes a different direction, comes to a different conclusion, and that happens, that we get some sort of guidance, direction, and now that the team's getting more fully staffed, they're going to be taking a look at how do we try to avoid as many of these as possible, right? So if there's some other thought and we can eliminate that, by clarifying either the standards or the ordinance or whatever. So, because I have seen people leave boards in the past over this type of situation. So it's, you know, it's important for everyone to feel appreciated in the role, so.
Corner fences are the thing that's gonna like drive me to an early death. So it's like, I wish there could be just like a really simple catch-all solution to them. And I
No,
spent
and-
10 years of my career working on corner fence variations. It seems minuscule, but it does have a big effect overall when you look at a community. So it is
Each
still,
of you guys
it
have
is
worked
still
in different
important.
towns.
Yeah.
And I haven't talked to you about it, but I could almost guarantee that you've run into this in other towns. So it's
And you
not
heard
unique
it
to
during
us.
our plan commission training from Lombard, right? They have the exact same situation and they had the same situations there. So it's tough because sometimes you want to say, let people do what they want. But then sometimes when you look at the result of that, you're like, oh, we don't want that. So where do you find the middle ground and how do you stick to it? It's tough. And for some reason, corner fences and signs can be the other thing. I think a lot of work actually went into our sign code before I got here. I don't know if Commissioner Shaw was part of that, but
Yep.
that's actually worked out really well. We haven't had a ton of people come here with variances. I think found a good middle ground. I wish someone smarter than me could figure out what the right answer is for fences, but we will work through it here with you guys, at least for Tinley Park, try and figure out what makes sense. And if it's different than what we have there now, we'll revisit that coming up.
Great. So I only had one or two other points that I wanted to bring up, and then we can get the heck out of here. Dan, when we were talking about parking standards for the village, I already said it in the hearing that I've been a proponent of modifying our parking requirements because I think that they're too high. You brought up Black Friday twice as the worst-case scenario, and you've probably seen a lot of the things I have on it, that, you know, Black Friday is usually held up as the, you know, the worst-case scenario, and then towns set their standards according to that, and the whole rest of the year, you've got what we used to have at Kmart. I don't know if it's ever been, I've seen elsewhere where communities do Black Friday analysis, and they actually go out and literally on Black Friday, you get volunteers go out there and you look at the Brookside Marketplace, you look at, you know, some of our larger places, and you just take a picture, you know, throw a drone up in the air, what have you. And then you have some data, some quantifiable analysis to base these changes on versus just simply a bunch of people sitting up here, you know, discussing it. So we've got a while before that one, but I don't know if if that's been done locally or anything like that, you know.
I don't think we've done anything here, but it's particularly valuable, maybe not changing overall codes, because I think we are going to look at a bigger picture than a few shopping centers, but it really helps is we're usually looking at, as a built-out community, we kind of have one of our resources that's getting harder and harder to find now is available developable land. So Menards' parking lot now is a good example for what that was designed for. 75% of that parking lot's not used on a regular basis now because it was designed for a Gatley's and an indoor shopping mall and a movie theater. It's now a Menards, and the gymnastics place probably has a higher demand than anything else there. But you could put an outlot building or something in there. So I think that's where it helps you find, okay, is there usable land out there that's valuable, more valuable than a parking lot is, and can do good for the community. That's, I think, where that is particularly valuable, to figure out where is this available land
Yeah.
at. And
Menards
you
is a
can
good
take into
example.
account vacancies and stuff like that too.
Yep.
Um,
Menards is
but
a
that's
good example if you've driven through there and had to skid to a stop and dodge the people going 50 miles an hour through the parking lot, right? Based on that, there's too much open space,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So,
And hey, there's more end islands now in the Hobby I push for all those end islands on the Hobby Lobby floor and decor site, because when you don't have end islands, that's when you get those people
Cross
shooting all the way through.
Yep.
And people just don't know how to drive if you don't have end islands. So those, I hopefully have helped a little bit. We push for little improvements when we can. And even Menards at one point didn't have really end islands out there. So hopefully that there's, it was one of the things that drove me nuts the most when I got here, was that whole area was really disconnected between all those different sites. But now between the Brixmor Amazon Center, that one, Menards, we try and connect things a little better, but,
Yep.
good points on the parking. Yeah, we haven't done an overall analysis, but I think that could help us figure out where we have available land, where we have too much parking, and where we can, at specific sites, we can maybe adjust it at.
All right, that's all I had. I thought someone had an additional comment over on the side.
We got a couple more things, I think.
I'd have one comment on the, just a question. It seems to me that the issue of parking spaces per square footage is something that the marketplace would do a very good job at determining, because it's such an important issue for people running a business.
Yep.
So,
And that's a lot of, we rely a lot on that. What we still, you still kind of want some line, or at least some review of it, to make sure somebody's not doing something so unique that it hurts the long-term viability of a site. An example would be like a warehouse where you go, somebody could come in and say, we only need like 100 spaces, but you have this massive building that later on, what does that become? And does it really limit what the uses are in the future? Does it hurt that long-term overall? But I think you're just trying to stop those extremes that could be really hurtful for the property and what the future looks like. But for the most part, we've relied on, it's really it does well to be market-driven. Because even that can be controlled with the market-driven, is they should have some desire to make sure that property is valuable when they inevitably sell it, right? And if they had no parking, even if they didn't need it, they may build it just to make sure it's usable later. So it is something that is actually, it's essentially what we've defaulted to here, is tell us what you need and kind of show us it's gonna work. And that's worked out well since I've been here. I think with the projects that have been built and constructed, we haven't had too many issues that I know of, so.
All right, any further questions or comments? If there are none, I'll
Really quickly,
Oh, yeah,
we have a
sorry.
couple more things. Odyssey is actually, it's been kind of paused at the village board, the request for them to build the single-story ranches. So our attorneys dug in a little deeper. Some of the concerns that came up with the HOA are still, it's unclear if what they're proposing meets what the PUD was approved as. It's kind of unrelated to what the request was here, but we want to make sure that what they're going forward with, everything's resolved with that and it's good to go. So before that, it's kind of been paused for right now. It may, if we don't get resolution to that soon, it may actually get remanded back to you as Plan Commission, because we don't want to move forward with something if there are other issues on the site. So it's kind of would be maybe a whole separate request or change that would have to come forward, or it's something they just get resolved, it meets what was approved with the PUD in the HOAs, and then it'll just go back before you guys. But just to let you know, if that pops back up on agenda, that's why that's happened, so. We're working with our attorneys as well as them and the Umbrella Association, so stuff's moving forward. It's a lot of deeds and HOA covenants and PUDs from the 1990s we're having to dig through, so we'll get there.
A couple other things. One important thing regarding online permitting. Residential residential permits can be submitted online now. So we have that as an available option for residents. So that's a huge win, I think, for us to be able to allow the convenience for residents to, submit fence permits or, anything involving their home. Commercial permits may be coming up within the next month or so. So that's one important thing. And then just to recap a couple of projects, the gas and wash that we have continued a couple of times, they will be resubmitting soon here to the village, so we'll have to republish for that, and that'll be forthcoming. As far as projects that have already gone through the Plan Commission, the Chipotle on 159th and 71st, and the Marriott Residence Inn, that was sometime before that. These are projects that are right now in our permitting process. And lastly, you know, as far as like stuff under construction, of course, Loyola is still moving along very quickly. They've got basically their exterior facade up, and they're working out some of the insides. And Ascent Cannabis, you know, which of course we talked about earlier tonight, you know, they're working on their interior construction. And lastly, Crumble Cookie is opening tomorrow.
Ooh,
So I want to leave that on a good note.
talk about Black Friday.
All right.
It was on the news.
What was
Yeah,
it?
it was on Channel 9 News the other night.
Really?
Mhm.
Great. All right. Now, I'll entertain a motion to close the
Second.
regular meeting.
Second.
All right, move Commissioner Merrick, second Commissioner Gaskell. All in favor, say aye. 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 We are closed.